On the ocean, under the moon. A lone carriage sailed through the fog-covered back streets of London, its four wheels clattering over the cobblestones. Why fog, though? At last, it came to a stop in one nondescript, deserted alleyway. Oh, dang! It's Colonel Morin again.
Your report, Colonel Morin.
The carriage's window opened without a sound, and from within a quiet voice was audible against the night stillness.
Yes, sir.
The tense voice of a man could be heart in reply. I'm sure he put his whole heart into that reply.
Porlock's ship has set sail from the port of London as planned. Its destination is the British colony of Hong Kong in southeastern Asia. The underground den beneath St. Spira Church, where the drugs were being stored, has been burned as you ordered. I do not believe it possible that any evidence remains that would lead Scotland Yard or Sherlock Holmes to suspect our involvement. Well done. Still, was it wise to send Porlock unaccompanied? He has not shown himself to possess the sense of responsibility for his actions that one within our organization ought. To give him a task of this import to handle on his own. I understand your concern. Porlock has ever been a strange one. All I know of him is that he was born in the East End. Even to I, who took him in, he has never disclosed more than that.
Is this Moriarty? Is it? I know I'm like the girl who cried Moriarty, but it's like this Moriarty, finally?
He resents the kindness and goodwill of his fellow man, preferring to make his judgments based on whether a person will be of any use to him. Unlike my loyal right-hand man, who is wholly without mercy toward traitors, he cares not what abides in the heart of others. 'Tis only ability he seeks. His way of thinking is uncomplicated. That is what I like about him. Even so, if you continue to allow him so long a leash, there is no telling when you will find yourself entangled in it. You honestly think I would allow him to work ill against me? I believe there is a strong likelihood that his actions could bring harm upon this organization. There is no need for worry, Colonel Morin. Even if he fails to do as I have ordered, our power shall not diminish in any way. There are plenty of replacements for even a man of his talents. As long as society continues to shun those on the periphery of society, and whose weak and without hope are born each day, we shall never want for manpower.
Not long after, the carriage began to move once again, disappearing into the same blanketing fog from whence it had come. I kind of think that might have been Moriarty. When things had at last become calm, Kobayashi and I left the children in Akachi's care and set about searching the ship from top to bottom. Well, did you find anyone else?
No such luck. We searched every nook and cranny, too.
We're still none the wiser as to who shot Dehar's gun from his hand. Pendleton, did you, yeet yourself over the side of the boat and swim back to England? Where are you? I found myself thinking back to my earlier exchange with the ship's captain.
Now that Master Porlock's been bested, I've no reason not to work with you. We don't have enough fuel to turn back, but I can drop you off at the next port on the way to Hong Kong. So please, I beg you, ask nothing more of me.
Porlock, Dehar, and all their subordinates had rounded up and locked away below deck. But even so, the man still sounded as though he feared for his life. Not to mention, we still have no clue as to who helped spring Akachi and Kobayashi from their cell, either. I looked up from my thoughts to see Akachi walking away, hand pressed firmly to his shoulder. Akachi, are you going somewhere?
Well, now that the two of you have returned, I expected I could leave matters here in your hands for the moment as I go tend to my wounds.
I'd be happy to come help you dress your injuries.
I couldn't possibly trouble you with that.
Please, you needn't worry about that. I am offering because I want to help you. I gently took his hand in mine. Come, Akachi. He turned his face away from mine, obviously embarrassed, but even as he did so, his grip on my hand tightened.
I'll keep an eye on the children here, so go on and patch them up, Emily.
What a bro. After Kobayashi saw the two of us off, we made our way inside one of the ship's cabins. All right, let's get your shirt off then.
Miss Whiteley, I really don't think...
I must insist. Doing this alone is just more strain, and that's the last thing you need right now.
Seeing the wounds of others cannot make for a very appealing sight, though.
Well, it doesn't bother me.
But...
I want to see you with your shirt off, alright? Gosh, don't make me beg, man.
In the end, despite his protest, he could not deter me from my task. You go, girl. Then suddenly a realization struck me. Akachi, you've gone back to calling me Miss Whiteley again. He had finally begun calling me by my given name, but for reasons unknown he had reverted back to the stodgy Miss Whiteley as though we hardly knew one another.
My apologies for earlier. It was a momentary lapse in judgment.
But hearing you say it made me very glad.
What? Come, don't give me that forlorn look. If I crumbled beneath that light of pressure, I would be possessed of a weak will indeed.
I respectfully disagree, but please continue.
Seeing you sit there with a smile is just making it harder to...
He seemed at first troubled, but I persisted. I would like to call you by your given name as well, so I want you to do the same for me.
Very well, then. Emily.
Thank you, Ken-chan!
Of all the things to remember, that silly old nickname?
I don't think it's silly at all. It's rather endearing, in fact. You don't think so?
Of course I don't. If you're determined to use something other than my first name, I would rather you use my proper given name.
Splendid. So... Kenichirou, then? As I sounded out the name, he quickly turned his back to me. He just keeps turning around in circles. What's wrong?
I apologize, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to insist that you continue calling me Akachi after all.
What? But why?
Please, understand. It seems I require more... training before I am ready to hear you call me in such a familiar way.
Listening to him plead, I couldn't very well refuse him. I nodded. Still, with how he phrased it, it sounds as though he may eventually be open to me calling him Kenichirou.
So, would you be willing to give me a hand with this, Emily?
He still seemed somewhat awkward calling me by my given name, but at least he was trying, and that filled me with gladness. Of course! Akachi's form was surprisingly slender compared to that of most men. Still, most likely as a result of his martial training, his muscles were clearly defined, with not an inch of loose skin or fat to be seen on him. Not that I was ogling. I guess this is what one might describe as a lithe form. The greatest amount of a man's bare skin I had seen up until then was exposed arms when they had rolled up their sleeves. Perhaps it was for that reason, and that alone, that I couldn't help but be enamored at the sight of Akachi-san's usual shirt and jacket. You know? Oh, thank you, visual novel gods, for the CG. I'm like, I need this in my life. Please. Oh, I am relieved.
Is something wrong? Are you revulsed to see such an unpleasant bloody sight?
No, not at all. I just found myself captivated.
By what?
Well, your lithe form, if I'm being honest. Nothing. I felt such a burning embarrassment that I could not bring myself to meet his gaze. Still, I was here to help tend his wounds. If at any time it hurts, just say so, all right?
I'll be fine. The pain of a cut is known to all who take up the blade.
That's beside the point. I want to be as gentle as I can with you. To soothe you, not hurt you. Akachi? What is it? Did that hurt?
No, that's not it.
It's just... His sudden reticence had aroused in me a strange nervousness.
I'm not certain how to respond to such tender, magnanimous care.
What?
It lays in stark relief how ill-suited I am to play the role of an English gentleman. Not only have you seen me at my most unsightly, I have ended up in your care when the duty was mine to take your hand, lead, and guide you. Even as I feel both contrition and gratefulness towards you, I have found myself unable to give proper voice to those feelings. And in so doing, I have put you ill at ease, your smile clouded over.
That's not...
I'm sorry. I truly am a pitiful man. I had hoped never to cause you trouble, and yet my words, and my strength, always come up wanting.
Is that what you think? He hung his head, words filled with such a defeated sadness that before I knew it, I had embraced him from behind. Aw, you get him, girl.
Emily, what are you...
He shifted uncomfortably, but I was not about to let him wallow in his sorrows alone. Please, there's no need to feel so troubled. I tightened my arms around him, taking care not to put pressure on his wounds. I don't think you're pitiful, for one. But you spend so much time contemplating what you lack, and you criticize your own self so much more harshly than any other. To my eyes, you often look lonely.
Lonely?
Yes, and you seem possessed of a fear that others will hate you. You have helped me on so many occasions, even going so far as to save me from harm, and yet there's been nothing I might do to return those favors. Okay, I just want to make sure I get, like, the full view of what's going on here for science. Okay. Science satisfied. No matter how you may look, unsightly or dapper, in my heart you shall ever be the same hard-working, dedicated, and kind-hearted Akachi I have always known. I could never even think to hate you. Merely expressing my thanks doesn't convey the fullness of my feelings, and simply saying that your company brings me happiness seems woefully insufficient. Try as I might, I couldn't help but feel that in spite of my words of encouragement I might offer, I was helpless to ease his pain. It was that thought that frustrated and confounded me more than I could bear. Vain though it may have been, I harbored a small hope that my embrace could in some way help alleviate his suffering where my words could not. I want to set you at ease, to assuage your worries. I don't want you to labor under the belief that you are pitiful. After all, why should you speak ill of that very man for whom I have come to care so deeply?
Your words cut to the very heart of me like no other. To hear you speak with such unvarnished care is a salve greater than any medicine, a buoyant encouragement to my heart. Truly, your words cause my heart to ache.
What? Akachi gently placed his hand atop mine, slowly closing his fingers to envelop it.
Emily, I want you to listen to what I'm about to say.
I sat at rapt attention, determined to let not a single word of his pass me by.
I have always...
Dang! Timing! Oh no! I know we're probably needed, but oh, it was so perfect. No doubt's gone. Like, alright, fine. Delaying the love confession. I can handle this. It'll be fine.
Hey, Akachi! Emily! Sorry to barge in unannounced, but I was just speaking with the captain, and he told me our next port of call will be in India.
Yeah, this is why you should knock. So, we weren't needed. The prisoners didn't escape. The kids didn't try to kill you. Nothing. You just had to come and tell us that, huh? Kobayashi, this is the only time I've been disappointed with you in this route, so you get a pass. Don't do this again. The door flung open, and through it Kobayashi came bounding. Kobayashi? The second I saw Kobayashi, his eyes wide with surprise at the scene upon which he had intruded, I was overcome by a burning sense of embarrassment. This isn't what it looks like, I assure you! It's exactly what it looks like. Completely flustered, I quickly scooted away from Akachi. What am I doing? I had only meant to tend to his wounds.
Well, my report isn't anything that can't wait a while. I'll leave you two to it then.
Kobayashi did a perfect about face and exited the cabin as fast as his legs could carry him without breaking into a run. It's too late. The moment's gone.
Emily,
Yes?
could you please continue dressing my wounds if you would?
Of course! He looks so frightening now. Because his moment was ruined. Oh no, Kobayashi's gonna get it. Oh no.
I can see I'll need to have a good, long talk with Kobayashi later.
Having said that, he carefully adjusted his glasses and spoke no more. Our ship made its way across the Mediterranean, through the Suez Canal, and began its southward journey across the length of the Red Sea. Before the canal was completed, ships in transit to India or Asia had to round the southern tip of the African continent. However, its opening heralded a new age of travel, cutting a great deal of time from the trip between England and the Orient. Eventually, we crossed into the Arabian Sea and sailed eastward toward the trading hub of Bombay.
So this is India. The birthplace of curry and rice, isn't it? I saw it all the time back in London.
It isn't just curries India is known for. The tea grown here is renowned the world over. Darjeeling, Assam, and Nilgiri tea, among others, come from the hills of India.
The former British East India Company used to have a branch in Japan, too, in the city of Hirado. In a sense, India is a vital nexus of trade and transit that connects English and East Asia. At any rate, we need to deliver Porlock and his men to the authorities here. We may have them locked away, but we can't afford to let our guard down.
Right. I caught his subordinates fighting through the bars of their cells yesterday. The captain and the ship's crew all seem rather on edge too, though for what reason I don't know.
With any luck, the police here may be able to uncover some information about the organization Porlock and Dehar belong to. Now safely docked in the port, we went to prepare Porlock and his motley band for their transfer to the Indian authorities. However, we were soon to discover that such a handover would prove impossible. Who could have done this? We found them dead, to a man, still in their cells.
They've all been shot with a gun. The question is how? We made sure to take all their weapons from them.
Pendleton? No. Why would he wait till now? Hold on, I'm rubbing my eyes. Rias? Wait. Is this a typo? No. None of this makes sense. You look exactly like Ryan, but different. Does he have a twin brother that's serves in India, and if so, that is the greatest coincidence that has ever happened in the history of video games. You get the same voice, just saying.
According to your account, this ship was carrying people who had been abducted by these men, correct? And said victims were both drugged and mistreated. Which means that the captors hadn't exactly endeared themselves to their captives. Perhaps it's not my place to say, as an officer of the law, but I can't help but think they got what they deserved in the end.
This may seem a strange question, Inspector, but have we met somewhere before? You seem oddly familiar to me somehow, and I can't quite put my finger on it. Okay, I'm so glad you addressed that. I was like, they better not just, like, let that slide by.
No, I'm quite certain this meeting is our first. You'd be surprised how often I hear that, though. People telling me I remind them of this or that person.
You're not wrong, Emily. He looks a mite familiar to me, too.
Well, it's commonly said that everyone has at least 3 people in the world who resemble them to a remarkable degree. There must be several other young men out there burning with the same justice that goads me daily onward.
Good grief. That just doubled the sense of déjà vu.
The city of Bombay is a major trading center, and in a city this bustling, bringing the hammer down on illegal business dealings is the prime task of its police force. Lately, we've had a rash of children of unknown origin being forced into illegal labor. It's become a vexing problem here in the city. But I shall take full responsibility in ensuring you that each and every one of the children aboard your ship are put back on a vessel headed to England.
Thank you ever so much. A short distance away stood Akachi, puzzling through the details of the seemingly impossible murders. So is Porlock also dead?
Each of them died instantly from a single bullet through the head. The killer would have had to possess considerable proficiency with firearms to be capable of such a feat. Besides the 3 of us, Porlock and his men, and the ship's crew, there was the man who returned Kobayashi's tools to him. Could he have been the one to...
What's the matter, Akachi?
Oh, nothing much. Just mulling over a few loose ends.
But in the end, the identity of the assassin remained a mystery, and we handed over the bodies, the ship's crew, and custody of the children to the police in Bombay.
Hey, Akachi? Just recently, I happened to remember something that I wanted to ask you about.
Oh? What might that be?
Before we left to rescue Emily from that warren beneath the church, there was a letter that arrived from Japan addressed to the Academy. The one Mr. Mackenzie handed you. As I recall, it contained news about an ambassador from a major nation who was attacked while visiting Japan, or something to that effect.
I know the one you're referring to. I haven't forgotten about it.
Akachi paused a moment before answering.
Fortunately, the ambassador pulled through, but the attempted assassination of an ambassador is still a significant, not to mention regrettable incident for our homeland. It carries with it also a real risk of being seen as an international incident, and as such needs to be investigated with the utmost care.
I'm glad the attempt on the ambassador's life proved unsuccessful, but it really gives a stark impression of how great a distaste many of our countrymen have toward foreigners. And? I'm guessing that wasn't all that was written in the letter. What else did it say?
It lays out that the Metropolitan Police Department are no exception to the aforementioned xenophobia, and that they are also opposed to foreigners entering the country as well. The letter stated that, in order for the investigation to be conducted in a fair and impartial manner, the assistance of reliable sources with great insight on the outside world will be required. And as such, we have been summoned to return to Japan.
I had a feeling something like that might happen. Huh.
Kobayashi sighed, knowing that he and Akachi had little say in the matter.
Still, the situation must be rather serious for them to call us home before our term of study is over.
Yes, it's not difficult to imagine that being the case. This incident may have a profound effect on Japan's growing diplomatic relations with foreign nations. And let you forget, it was national funding that allowed us to travel abroad to study in England to begin with. So if our homeland has need of us, we must answer that call.
If we manage to help sort out an international incident, why, even your master might rethink his opinion of you.
I wouldn't hold my breath on that.
Akachi cast his gaze downward, his lack of confidence palpable.
Still, if we need to go home, wouldn't it be faster to simply continue on to Japan from here? India is the door to Asia, after all, and trading ships from Japan frequently make port here.
I was just thinking that. I'm like, you're so close to Japan already. Surely it would be better to just go there. And take your girl with you.
You have a point.
But that leaves the matter of Emily. I can only imagine how much she would like to return home.
Greatly, given the ordeal she has been through.
But you don't wish to be apart from her, even for a brief time, do you?
Yes, I must confess she has stolen my heart. Is the dramatic response you're angling for, isn't it? Why ever would I admit such a thing to you?
Oh? Am I wrong, then?
Kobayashi's eyes were wide with interest, but the same energy was nowhere to be found in Akachi's reply. Oh no, not these boys. I've forgotten about these two, gosh darn.
Unlike the two of us, she has many friends and relations in Engelsch awaiting her safe return. Why would she not hope to be reunited with them as soon as possible?
Gosh, even these two? You even think of these? I haven't actually seen Jack smile like that yet. When did you guys get to see that? He's like, you know, there's 4 other eligible bachelors back in England that she probably wants to get home to, rather than me that she was just snuggling the other night. Right? Logic? Oh, man. Why you gotta make this so difficult?
Ah, but you're just assuming that to be the case, though. Why not simply ask her what she'd like to do?
It's not hard to foresee the answer. Even if I were to ask, all I would hear is her desire to return home.
It's not wise to assume too much, though. Imagine, if you asked her to accompany you to Japan, she might smile and nod the affirmative. She might even throw her arms around you in a passionate embrace.
Why did you suddenly jump from nods to passionate embraces?
Well, she's got a surprisingly bold side to her, after all. I don't think there are many ladies out there who would press themselves against a heavily wounded man, especially when that man is you.
Well, pardon me for being myself.
Excuse me.
All kidding aside, I really think that, given the situation, you ought to go and ask her in person. Both of you have the same problem, you see. Each of you always thinks more about the other than about their own self. So in uncertain times like this, it falls to you to be a man and take the initiative.
Kobayashi.
And if she ends up rebuffing your affections, I shall be right here to comfort and console you.
I'll be fine, thank you.
Appreciated though, man. And so several days passed. Arrangements had been made for the children to return to England aboard a trading vessel headed for London. Under the circumstances, one would expect me to join them on that same ship. However, I was still uncertain as to what I should do. Akachi and Kobayashi will be returning to Japan to assist with the investigation of an international incident. But where does that leave me? What should I do? Should I return to England?
I'm afraid I cannot recommend that you actually travel to Japan.
I found myself recalling what Akachi had once said to me with a twinge of pain in my chest. I don't wish to trouble Akachi with my selfish desires. If telling him that I wish to join him on his journey would only cause him trouble, it would perhaps be for the best to simply say goodbye with a smile on my face. I turned toward him, a maelstrom of emotions whirling within my heart. He was kneeling there so that he might see the children face to face. They looked back at him quietly, gazes filled with confusion.
I was born and raised in a country very different from yours. The time I have spent in your homeland is far shorter than the lives you have lived there, but even so, and perhaps all the more because of it, I feel that your country is truly a wonderful place.
A certain serenity seemed to settle over Akachi's features as he spoke.
I can think of no country more progressive, more alive with culture, and home to more women both strong and kind. I am genuinely glad I was granted the opportunity to visit from far across the sea, and to have been given the chance to learn there. So please, hold high your heads and be proud of the country in which you were born. And do not forget that your nation, whose memories I will ever cherish, needs your energy and your smiles to keep it strong. All of that might seem a bit difficult to take in, but did you understand what I said?
The children nodded in response. Some were slow to signal their affirmation, while others reacted with far more forcefulness.
It reassures me to see that.
He then went around, placing his hand on the head of each of the children one by one. Each reacted in a different way. From some, he elicited surprise, while others seemed altogether uncertain how to respond to such a gesture. But by the time he had withdrawn his hand, each wore a smile, even if shyly and tentatively.
He really is quite good when it comes to looking after others.
As I looked on, I couldn't help but think back to a time when he had tousled young Rick's hair in the same manner as now. In that moment, I completely understood how that child must have felt, constantly chasing Akachi, desiring fervently to become his pupil. But while Rick was able to chase after him without pausing to worry whether Akachi might find his actions bothersome, giving heed only to his own desires, I was unable to. I would never want to cause him trouble or be a burden, but even so, if he were to tell me plainly he wanted me to come with him, even just that, every doubt would vanish. Surely he must realize at least that. So why does he remain silent? Instinctively, I squeezed my eyes tightly shut, sealing up the tears that threatened to flow forth. But even were time to stop for me in my sadness, it would continue its march for others.
Emily.
I opened my eyes and found Akachi standing there before me. Akachi! A flash of embarrassment took hold of me, and my first thought was to immediately excuse myself.
Please, wait.
He gently took hold of my arm as though to calm my fears.
As much as it embarrasses me to admit, these past few days I have thought of nothing but you. Although perhaps it is more appropriate to say that I have done nothing but worry over you instead.
You were worried?
About whether I ought to see you off on your return to Engelsch with a smile, or tell you of my own thoughts, selfish though they may be.
At his words, my heart fairly skipped a beat.
Under ordinary circumstances, we would wish each other well and part ways here, each setting out to our own destination. But I have finally come to realize that I cannot find it in me to want that. I cannot wish you well, knowing that will be a world away.
I felt the firmness of his grip on my arm. That at his words it tightened ever so slightly. Akachi?
Emily, if you have any desire, even the slightest wish to remain by my side, then come to Japan with...
Hello? Haunted game again? Gosh darn this game and its ghosts. This was ages ago and I reset that. I can't. Pendleton. Ghost Pendleton too.
Stop, everyone stop interrupting these two. They need to smooch, need to do it yesterday, and need to go to Japan on their honeymoon, okay? Just let it happen, please, everyone. Ugh.
My lady!
Was that just my imagination? That sounded like... But just as I began to doubt my own ears, I heard it again.
My lady! Are you all right?
Am I hearing things? That voice sounds strangely familiar.
Kobayashi's puzzlement and Akachi's expression confirmed that I hadn't been the only one to hear the voice that had called out to me.
I finally managed to reach you. It's been quite the ordeal making it from London to India, I assure you.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you had to hide all over the bloody ship, didn't you?
It pleases me greatly to see you in good spirits, my lady.
Pendleton? My surprise at seeing him strolling down the deck toward me could not have escaped anyone's notice.
Pendleton? When did you get here?
How did you even get here?
Do you honestly hold my abilities in such low esteem, my lady? I am your faithful butler, you know. I simply predicted the course of the ship that had taken you away and followed you via an overland route. A simple enough task.
Lies. Lies. By land?
You've gotta be joking.
How rude. I would never hide the truth from Lady Emily.
Lies. Still, I'm amazed you're able to make the journey.
Friends who will come to your aid in your hour of need are one of life's greatest treasures, are they not?
Although we found Pendleton's story to strain all credibility, there was no doubting that it was indeed he who stood there before us.
Still, I can scarcely believe Akachi and Kobayashi are here as well. I never imagined that they would actually go so far as to sneak aboard the ship where you were being held.
I'm more amazed that you can lie with such a straight face, given that you most certainly aided us from the shadows.
It's true, that's why I had the voice on to begin with, because I wanted to confirm that it was indeed Pendleton who gave them the stuff, and it was.
Oh? Whatever are you talking about?
I was just musing that Engel's butlers may well be as resourceful and able as the shinobi of Japan.
Surely you overestimate my abilities, Akachi. I'm just your standard, highly capable butler.
Or hell of a butler.
Standard, and yet highly capable.
Is it just me, or does there seem to be some disagreeable circumstance between the two of them? Did something happen while I was being held prisoner beneath the church?
My lady, I feel the climate here will not be good for your skin. We should make our return to England at once.
But...
If you would excuse me, Pendleton.
Oh. He's like, oh no you don't, I'm getting this out of here. Suddenly, Akachi took hold of my arm.
I have something I feel I must say. Would you kindly stop trying to take her away right in front of me?
Akachi?
Come now, there's no need to lay your failings upon me, Akachi. Rather than spending so long ruminating on it, you should have just come out and asked her.
Says the one who deliberately waited until the least convenient moment possible to make his appearance. You are quite the piece of work, Pendleton.
You guys are a very good match for each other.
Why, thank you. Incidentally, might I inquire as to when you began calling Lady Emily by her given name?
I will call her whatever I please, thank you.
And that is your right, of course. However, people do not often change the form by which they address another so long after being introduced. That leads me to wonder what might have happened between the two of you to bring about such a shift.
I feel under no obligation to provide any answer to that.
The words they exchanged, on the surface, seemed restrained, polite, and calm. But the looks in their eyes as they glared at each other seemed unusually frosty.
Wow. I have to hand it to both of them. I don't think I've ever seen a conversation more difficult to join in than this one.
Although I shared Kobayashi's timely sentiment, I knew I couldn't let Akachi and Pendleton continue staring each other down. Would the two of you be so kind as to stop scowling at one another?
At any rate, Lady Emily will be returning to London with me.
No, she will not.
What? Akachi pulled me close to him.
Because it's my intention to bring her to Japan with me, and I shan't be dissuaded. I swear that whatever may transpire there, I will guard and defend her. As such, I will not allow you to ferry her off back to London. If you insist on trying, Pendleton, then you will have to best me in a duel first, and I promise you I will not lose.
Akachi was now gazing straight on at Pendleton, with no hesitation of any sort visible in his bearing. Akachi?
Emily, ordinarily I would ask your opinion before issuing such a declaration, and for the trouble I am undoubtedly causing you, I apologize. But the truth of the matter is, I want to stay with you. I don't want to let you go.
His attention turned to me.
I realize that what I'm asking of you is the height of selfishness, but would you be willing to grant this one wish of mine?
The iron of the gaze he had shown Pendleton had melted away, and in his eyes I saw a gentle kindness and even a trace of nervousness. It felt as though he was showing his own weakness to me, and my chest tightened at the thought. And in that moment, I knew I wanted to go with him. The wish he had held to be so selfish was, in fact, the self-same wish I harbored.
If you are selfish, Akachi, then I am even more so. I want to see your homeland with my own eyes. I want to help you solve the incident that hangs over it like a storm cloud. I want to try the onigiri and manaka that Kobayashi told me about, and witness the changing of Japan's 4 seasons. I want to come to Japan with you, Akachi. Thank you, Emily.
Only then did I realize how nervous Akachi must have been about asking me, for I saw relief spread over his face and through his posture.
Way to go, Akachi! My predictions of a passionate embrace may have been off, but all's well that ends well, I say.
Seeing your desire to sail halfway across the globe to expand your horizons and learn more of the world gladdens me as well.
Pendleton! Then you consent?
Uh-huh. No, I still won't allow it.
What?
But why? How can you refuse after all that?
Her motives are impure. That is all the reason I need.
What exactly is impure about my motives?
That Akachi is the main reason for your sudden desire to travel abroad.
Must you really be such a stickler, Pendleton? Her desire to go together with Akachi is the entire point of it.
I want to visit Japan because it's the land in which Akachi was born and raised, and I shan't budge on that point. I'm the head of the family, gosh darn it. So much had happened that I wasn't about to give in, even if it meant arguing with Pendleton.
Pendleton, I will wait for as much time as you may require, so kindly prepare a weapon of your own choosing.
Akachi? What are you doing?
I'm gonna cut him. He released my arm, and to my surprise, his hand immediately hovered above the pommel of his katana.
Please step back, Emily. This may prove dangerous.
But you can't!
Oh, so it's to be decided through a bout of valorous combat, is it? Very well. If Emily herself is on the line, I will gladly meet your challenge.
Excuse me! I can decide for myself over here. You two can stop fighting with swords and stuff, and I am making a decision and putting my foot down. Enough of this. As a disturbingly cheerful smile spread across his face, Pendleton reached into his jacket. Unfortunately for you, I brought a gun to a sword fight.
Likewise. If this bout will decide Emily's destination, I shall emerge victorious, even if it means going down with you.
Now see here! Stop this, both of you! You shouldn't be fighting!
You have it wrong, Emily. This is no mere fight. If it were, I wouldn't be willing to stake my life on it.
His unflinching confrontation of Pendleton made clear that he meant every word he said. That's even worse! Sheathe your sword, Akachi! As much affection as I feel toward you, I have no love for aggressive men who are quick to fight.
What?
Akachi, you need to decide whether to be depressed or embarrassed, because it's gotten exasperatingly shameful watching you attempt to be both simultaneously.
Goodness. It beggars belief that you were rattled by so simple a thing.
I knew he would have brought a gun to a sword fight. You're the worst. Pendleton? Before I could move to stop him, Pendleton had pointed his gun at Akachi.
But if your determination is true, then show here and now the proof of your resolve.
Wait! I was stunned into speechlessness as the sound of a gunshot rang out across the deck. Unflinching, unmoving, Akachi's glare toward Pendleton remained steady. That is such a disconcerting look, man. Can you not look at someone like that? It is really disturbing. I can't look at you right now. Ugh.
Why did you make no attempt to avoid my shot?
I felt from you the same tension I feel in those who brandish a weapon, but I sense no killing intent behind it. If I were to lash out against your provocation here, I would prove myself entirely unfit to safeguard her.
The bullet Pendleton had fired was lodged in the wooden planks of the deck.
I see. You rightly discerned that much, yet your desire to protect her never wavered. I suppose there's no helping it then. I shall award you a passing grade this time. It looks like I can safely leave Lady Emily in your care after all.
Dang, I think that's the most he's given to any of the guys we've dated so far. Akachi, you get a gold star. Pendleton nodded, putting away his gun. But Pendleton, I can't believe you would seriously turn your gun on him.
I did so for your sake, my lady. Still, do not forget that there are many who eagerly await your return in London, and mysteries left unsolved. I shall look forward to seeing you a more learned and discerning young woman upon your return.
He smiled softly at me. Yeah, bye. I have such a love-hate relationship with you. Ever ready to chide me for my errors as he was, Pendleton also never failed to consider my feelings, and I was filled with a profound thankfulness for both aspects of the man. Of course. Thank you, Pendleton.
As for you, Akachi, if I should find that you have done anything to cause her even the slightest distress, you can be assured I will take her back with me to England at once.
Understood.
Oh. Akachi took me in his arms as if it were the most natural thing in the world.
Rest assured, I would never dream of doing any such thing.
Akachi. The warmth of my happiness mingled with my embarrassment, and before I knew it, I was blushing, uncertain whether to fix my gaze on him or the floor.